Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode. I am joined by a special guest. Well, everyone is a special guest to me. I'm joined by the good brother Alex Wood. Now, you know how it is with the world of Alpha. I meet people. We have not met physically, but I know that we have a kindred spirit and we just kind of vibe, and that's just how the Brotherhood goes. But particularly this brother is doing his thing internationally. This brother is in Canada. And so I wanted to bring him on the podcast to talk about his experience, one, with the frat, but two, with the international perspective of what he sees in America from an outside lens. But before we jump into that, Brother Alex, can you just give the listeners a little overview, a little introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me say this. Let me thank you, Frat, for just inviting me on and having me here and to have this dialogue on this platform. I think it's really meaningful and really important, and to just kind of kick it with brothers and talk about life, talk about our experiences, talk about what's going on in the world. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me on. Alex Wood. I am spring 1990. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated initiate through Alpha Xi chapter, the chilliest chapter in the world, which is located at the University of Washington in Seattle. I actually interesting path that I had to get there. I actually attended the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, and we'll probably talk a bit about some of that, just my growth and development. But had the opportunity to pledge Alpha, as an undergraduate, and just an excellent experience all the way around for the last 30 years, and then professionally. My background is in media and entertainment. As an actor, producer, I've done a variety of different things over the years in that arena. From feature film to television production and so forth in the U.S. and Canada. And currently, I'm a public affairs officer with the Canadian Armed Forces. So. Kind of combines some of my production background and communications and all of that in what I do on a daily basis. And then my side hustle is I teach television production at the University of Guelph-Humber in Toronto.
Wow, that's quite an experience. And I literally learned some new things. And I knew that you already official with the entertainment because you do so well with your own show, the Alpha House. And it seems so professional anyway. I knew when you told me all this stuff, it wasn't a surprise. The quality of your show is so professional. So, wow. So before offline, when we were just chopping it up before the show, you told me that your mother was from Canada, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that journey from your mother being Canadian kind of transport to you kind of ending up in college in America, particularly in Washington?
Wow, dude! How much time do we have, Frat? I'll try to give you the Cliff Note version. So my mother, when she was a teenager, her family moved from Vancouver to Seattle, and then a series of things happened, and basically she ended up having me in California. This is in the late '60s, and you can kind of gather the read between the lines, if you will. Anyway, so I ended up now one of the interesting things about all of that is I actually ended up living for a time, or being cared for a time, by an African American family. I have a foster mother, and if people on my social media have seen, she's still living, 90 years old. She's in a nursing home in Sacramento, Lucille McGee, and I thank God, for her, because she took me in at about 8 months old when my mother was going through some things. But so I was there for a bit, and then ended up with my grandmother in Seattle. My grandmother took care of me for about 5-6 years. And then my mother's sister and her husband adopted me. I was about 7. So in the meantime, my mother did come back in the picture. She had moved back to Vancouver. And of course, I had really, because of the family dynamics, had a lot of extended family and people in Canada.
Okay.
So I actually, as a kid, I spent a lot of time going back and forth and living here and there for periods of time, in Vancouver and that kind of thing. And even throughout my childhood and university years, I spent a lot of time there because it's not that far, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
a short
Yeah.
drive from the Seattle area.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how it worked for me. So I had that blessing of the dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Um, and then, life kind of happened, and I lived a number of different places around the United States. I've lived in LA, I've lived in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
lived up in Baltimore for a bit, and things like that. So I've seen a real cross section of the United States
Mm-hmm.
in my life experience. And then about 9 years ago, it's been now, had the opportunity, a job opportunity came up here in Toronto, and I had done some work because, again, being in the
Mm-hmm.
entertainment business, I'd done some jobs here. Love the city; it's a fabulous city, and it was just like this thing, man. And of course, you remember the recession that happened around '08,
Mm-hmm.
'09. Things are a lot more difficult in the States financially and all that. And I just said, you know what? Now might be the time to take a look at this. And the way it happened was kind of crazy because I applied for the job, and I think it was within a week I had the offer, and I just kind of knew. So it's time to come back to Canada, and I've been living here. So that's kind of my journey in a cliff note
Yeah.
fashion.
I love it.
But I've lived, like I say, and had the experience of both countries all my life, from my early childhood all the way through. So I've definitely seen a lot of the aspects of
Mhm.
culture, uh, economics, media, all of it. I've definitely seen both sides throughout my entire life.
Now, I mean, I'm gonna jump. You know me. I'm gonna do some pivots, but you decided to go to college, even with that bouncing between Seattle and Vancouver. You decided to go to college in Washington, state of Washington. How
Yeah.
did that? How did that? Why was that the decision rather than going to University of Vancouver or whatnot?
Really super simple. They offered money, man.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
It was. I played football in high school. I was interested in playing. Keeping on that with that. They were a school that recruited me.
Hmm.
University of Puget Sound, and then I did. Very good academically. In high school and all of that. So I had some scholarships. Academically and things like this, and it just kind of happened. Those things sort of coincided, and that seemed to me to be the place to go.
And then
So,
I mean, I'm just so curious about the exposure. Then how did you come to the house? How did that
oh
happen?
man, well, so really, that's folks need to check out my website and my play. I actually wrote a play about this because as you mentioned the opening, I've been an alpha for 30 years,
Mm.
and as you can imagine, folks kind of look at me and for those that are not familiar, no, I'm not the first non-African American alpha by a long shot, but it's not that common.
Hmm.
So I've often been asked, why did you do this? What's your experience like? And that leads to other questions and whatnot. So I
Mm.
wrote a play a few years ago. Actually performed it in 2017 in LA at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and it's something I want to put back out there on the road because I think it's actually really pertinent now with all the
Mm.
stuff going on in society. But to bring that kind of full circle to how did I get here? So my freshman year. Now, keep in mind, I'm a really young kid. I was
Mm.
very advanced academically, so I entered university at 17 years old,
Okay.
and I come from a blue collar family. I'm first in my family, to go to college and all this kind of stuff. I'm playing football. I'm doing my thing. Cool. But I don't have a lot of money. I didn't even have a car when I got to school, right? And University of Puget Sound, great school, but it is a private school, and a lot of the kids that I was running into there were of definitely a higher socioeconomic status than me,
Mhm.
and it definitely was, you could tell that, like you could feel that. But the other thing was, too, because of my background, because of my upbringing, because of my family life, I had always had a very multicultural and
Mhm.
multifaceted, diverse set of friends, and all of that. That was not unusual or anything for me, and in my family. So when I got to university, though, it was a little different because at that time, the University of Puget Sound was about 3,000 students roughly. I think there were 10 African Americans on campus. So
Mhm.
you kind of get the sense of, the community there. And so what happened was I actually ended up in an apartment because I couldn't afford the dorms
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving into an apartment with two African American guys, ball players. And to me, I mean, I didn't think twice about it. It was just a couple of my buddies and
Mhm.
a place to live, right? That I could afford,
Yeah.
and it didn't seem unusual or anything to me, but it spurred some really interesting reactions from some of these white guys, and so there was this thing, and of course, I mean, I'll be very blunt. I mean, yeah, I listened to rap music, hip hop. I was, into breakdance and all this kind of stuff, and other things, jazz and R&B and all that too. It was just me. Again, I didn't think it was odd or weird or unusual, but they certainly did,
Mhm.
and so it got quite a bit of reaction. So what happened is one of my roommates was the vice president of the Black Student Union on our campus,
Okay.
and we get to talking about all this, and he was like, man, this is some weird stuff because, as an African American person, yeah, I've been used to being treated differently and this kind of thing, but I've never seen this happen with, to white people, right, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so he was like, would you be willing to come to one of our BSU meetings and have a discussion about this? And I was like, sure, yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So I went to the meeting or whatever, and at some point they were like, hey, do you want to join the BSU? And again, keep in mind, I'm 17, man.
You're like,
I'm
okay.
not thinking about making a political statement.
No, you're just like,
I
cool.
I
This
can't
works.
even look. Think about it, Fred. I'm 17. I can't even vote yet, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
legally, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just hanging out. I'm just
You're like,
having
okay.
having
Yeah.
fun with people that I like.
Yeah.
Um, and so, sure, yeah, I'll join the BSU. That's cool. Well, the one thing I will say though about the BSU on our campus, there were a couple of aspects to it that were not unlike the fraternity, which I ended up being introduced to obviously a bit later. But one, we always had some sort of community service component to what we
Mhm.
did throughout the school year.
Mhm.
So yes, it was social. Yes, we had little parties and little things we did, but we also did community service work. That was important. The other thing is the people that there was a guy there, and he's still there, I believe, named Cerny Solidario. Cerny was the like the student programs advisor
Mhm.
fellow, and he was just a great guy, and so plugged in and so in tune with culture and diversity and all these things, and he was so instrumental in helping the BSU and other organizations too, but specifically our group, to bringing really important speakers and individuals to campus. So during the time that I was in school, I mean, we had Dick Gregory, we
Whoa.
had we had
Whoa.
James Baldwin, we had Dr. Harry Edwards, we had Spike Lee even came, to our campus. So being a young person in
Yeah, wow.
university, in that learning environment that you're in, trying to you know figure out who you are and all the things that you're are important to you, shaping your values as a young adult and all of that, you're being impacted, and you're sitting and listening to these people who are, when you say those names, I mean, I see your
Yeah,
reaction,
wow.
like they're iconic, man.
Yeah.
And so just brilliant people. um and so that, I think all of that had a real profound impact on me, just generally speaking. And I'll share an anecdote about James Baldwin in a moment. But over time, the dynamics on the campus changed a bit. There was an increased number of African American students. The
Mm-hmm.
BSU grew in number. And then what ended up happening was also in '88, if you know your film history, there's a very important African American film that came out. One of my favorite movies. Just I love watching it over and over again. Called School Days.
Oh yeah.
Spike Lee. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
everybody knows
We,
School Days.
we just had a film. We just my chapter just had a Netflix party. We watched it together.
See, so
Just a week ago.
there you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, School Days is great. I actually a couple years ago I was at the 30th anniversary in Atlanta, and that was really really special. But I was actually in the movie theater in 1988 when it came out. Watching
Yeah.
this as a student, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, to be frank, I didn't really know much about fraternities and sororities. We had a handful on our campus. They were the quote unquote white fraternities and sororities.
Yeah.
I didn't really see any benefit to me. I didn't see anything that attracted me to those organizations. And I guess part of it probably because I played football and stuff, I didn't lack for a social life.
Mm-hmm.
And while they may have done different activities and things, it just didn't seem to me to be of anything that really resounded with me. And I had my social group, the BSU kids and all that kind of thing. But then School Days came out. That kind of hipped me anyway, to the whole idea of the historically Black Greek organizations.
Yeah.
And then so the girls got together and formed an interest group, and then the guys did. And so then fall of '89, we had some young ladies pledged AKA, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And then we were on our journey with our thing. And we didn't know one from the next, a Q, Kappa, we didn't know. And so we went and contacted all these groups, except for the Sigmas. There weren't really any Sigmas up in that area, too tough at that time. But we contacted these different organizations, and we did those days, it was called a smoker, an interest meeting. And so, we met with the Kappas. Okay, cool. They're cool, whatever. Met with the Qs. They were good guys. Nice fellows that came out. Told us all about what they did and all about their history and everything. And then we had a smoker with the Alphas, with the frat, and it was so different because we got an invitation, or like a written invitation.
Yeah.
We had to come in suit and tie. It was at a banquet hall. It was a sit-down dinner, and it was a combination of alumni chapter brothers from the local area and the Alpha Psi chapter brothers from UW came down, University of Washington, and so it was guys our age, but then the older guys too.
Yeah.
And so we could kind of relate, and they had their stories and their anecdotes and different things. And there was a guy on our campus. There was a man named Joe Payton. He's passed on now. But Joe Payton was a Hall of Fame athlete at our school, the University of Puget Sound, when he had been there in the 60s. And then he was a coach when I was there. One of the most respected men, not only on our campus, but in the city community. Like everybody knew this guy. And he was just that man, And I'll be darned, Joe Payton is one of these alpha guys. That's what I'm thinking.
It's done deal.
And I'm like,
okay.
And we knew, I had no idea that Joe Payton was in a fraternity or any of this. He never advertised it, none of that. But it was the caliber of man that he was.
That's it. Done deal. Yep.
And then when they ran down that history, and I said, what? I know who all those people are.
Man, you already had Dick Gregory on your campus.
Well, the funny thing about Dick Gregory is Dick Gregory hadn't come to our campus yet. He came while we were online.
Oh, okay.
And I have to tell you that in a second. But but
all these people. Wow. Yeah.
but you know, when you talk about you know, obviously Dr. King, but Thurgood Marshall,
Yeah.
you know, Jesse Owens, Paul Robeson, all these different people that I knew and was familiar with. Um, it was like wow. And I had also one of the things too that had helped me too was I had a professor. So for my undergrad thesis, I produced a play. It's called Soul Gone Home. It's written by Langston Hughes.
Mm,
And my professor, she had done her dissertation on the Harlem Renaissance,
mm,
and you know the theater during that time, right? So I had a lot of things that had been dropped on me knowledge wise, that kind of I knew who a lot of these people were, who these figures were and stuff. Even if I hadn't got it in a formal history class somewhere else, I had this exposure. And so when I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all this and I'm going, oh yeah, I can see myself. This is where I need to be, you
mm.
know. And so that's what happened. And we end up pledging, and here I am 30 years later.
That's
Um,
crazy.
the Dick Gregory story is kind of funny because, you know, we were actually online and he came, it's Kilworth Chapel on the Puget Sound campus. He comes to do a lecture and we were online and we were not allowed to go in the lecture hall area. We had to stand outside and listen because, you know, he was an alpha man. We were just Sphinxmen at the time. So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
that's my Dick Gregory story. I was fortunate enough to meet Brother Gregory in person in 2006 in Atlanta during the centennial. So, you
Wow.
know, but iconic man, you know,
That's
just, I mean, it
crazy.
speaks for itself. Right. So, but those are some of the things that led to, that's kind of the journey that led to me pledging, in a nutshell.
And so maybe just jumping around, obviously you stayed active for 30 years.
Right.
And during those times you mentioned Baltimore and Atlanta. So you just stayed active and just saw, in addition to seeing, as you said, the culture of the United States, you saw even the frat culture, how different and non-monolithic it is across the United States as well.
Oh yeah, man. I've lived in 4 out of the 5 regions of Alpha, and
Hmm.
even within the fraternity, the culture. I
Yes.
mean, you come from the
Yeah.
west,
Yep.
to the south, and then I'm in the east, and now you know, Canada. We're in the Midwestern region, and absolutely over the years you meet brothers from, you know, you go to conventions and you go to different things, you meet brothers from all over, but also living and being active in chapters in these different regions, you definitely see the different dynamic. And so it's like a microcosm of the country itself, and
Hmm.
you see that there are these nuances. There are these cultural differences, you know, sort of differences of mindset, of people, as you travel from place to place throughout the United States. And you know, certainly within the fraternity, it's definitely something you notice. Brothers operate. It's still the same organization, so the
Hmm.
foundation is still there. But you know,
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. It's just sort of
Hmm.
an innocuous one, but how brothers step.
Yep.
like
Yeah.
like the style, you see brothers from the south, they have a whole different style than the brothers
Hmm.
from the west coast, right? So you use even something like that, you will see, you know. And I think that's actually the cool thing, is because that's the beauty of it. We can come from all these different places, these different experiences, these different cities, campuses, whatever you want to say, but we're one brotherhood. And to
Hmm.
me, that's like the beauty of Alpha, is that at the end of the day, we all come together as one.
Now, so jumping forward, you're living in Canada now.
Hmm.
Obviously, shout out to you. I did a little bit. You were the Midwestern region vice president. Is that correct?
No,
Right.
no, no, no. So I was the district director for Canada for
Gotcha.
7 years, 2012 to 2019, and then I did run for regional vice president. Was not elected. Brother Ross Stovall is our current regional VP. Great brother. I ran for that position, but no, been in the Midwest now for since 2011. Yeah. So.
So with that experience, do you think, particularly, like a lot of the service and all the things, uh, what is the vibe for a chapter, or even as a district director of uh, this organization, obviously rooted in American culture, but on the outside? Do you think it loses, not loses, but does it have a harder time to, just feel connected to the frat on the outside, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
African American history, roots in America, maybe a lot of the things, voteless people, hopeless people, those are initiatives for, encouraging voting in America, kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still involved and engaged in those initiatives, even on the outside. You get what I'm like?
Absolutely. No, I totally understand. And such a man, that's such an insightful question. And those that are, know that we're working on developing the international presence and arm, if you will, of Alpha, because we do have chapters around the world. And it's an important thing. I think that what we have to go back to, you referenced, the Alpha history earlier. We got to go back to our own history, to see the importance of this. 1908, the Easter break, as it was called at Cornell University. Two of our original founding jewels, Brother Eugene Kinkle Jones and Brother Vertner Woodson Tandy, two of our original founders, traveled to Toronto and set up the original Delta chapter, the fourth chapter in the fraternity. Now, the fraternity, I mean, we're December 4th, 1906, and you're talking April of 1908. We're not even 2 years old as an organization.
That's quite remarkable.
These guys, and it blows my mind. And I've been actually working on a project on this, because I'm trying to get deeper into the mindset of what in the world were these guys thinking, because first of all, they create this fraternity, and we know the history behind that, and it was very purposeful, very methodical. They had absolutely had a vision and a plan to implement that. Okay, great. But like you said, in this American context, what possessed them to go across the border and think that they could set up a chapter at a university in another country?
Right.
And they weren't even 2 years old as an organization. Whoa. Well, stay tuned in the future for a film I'm working on, and some other things for more insight on that. And I've shared a little bit about a couple of the brothers that we know from the history, Brother Dr. Keith Simon and Brother Dr. Melangeni, who were part of that original Delta chapter. But and I won't go off into that story right now. But but when you look at those men and their whole thing that they bring to the table individually, you understand why our jewels, were doing what they were doing. I'll say that much. But at the same time, okay, our jewels, our founders, set up an international chapter very early on, which means it's at the heart of their vision for the fraternity that they saw, because we have a saying in Alpha Phi Alpha is the light of the world. Well, what does that mean? Just the United States? No, it means the whole world, truly. And how does the question becomes, though, now in this modern age, now that we're a well-developed organization with chapters all over and all this kind of thing, and partnerships with major entities like Boys and Girls Club and different things like this. How does that translate internationally? Because certainly there are some challenges. Okay, but you mentioned voteless people as a hopeless people. Voter registration here in Canada, for example, we can't do it the same way that it's done in the United States. There's different procedures for it, but we sure can encourage it.
There you go. Okay.
We can hold candidate forums. We can encourage people to get educated about the candidates, in their various what we call ridings, you would call districts in the States, for example. If it's the city of Toronto, which is the largest city in Canada, 2.6 million plus people. This is a serious municipality here. We need to have great leadership. We have issues of anti-Black racism in Canada.
Yes. Okay.
It's not exactly the same in every detail as what is going on in the United States, but at the end of the day, racism is racism. So
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
Alpha,
Yeah.
we need to tailor our program and our agenda to where we are, right? So how the programs and how the discussion looks here in Canada versus how it looks in the United States may be
Mm-hmm.
slightly different, but at the end of the day, we're after the same thing. We're the light of the world. We want to make the world a better place. We provide service and advocacy to our communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can do that anywhere we are, that we have a
Right.
presence. We just need to find the specific ways and specific avenues to do it. And so we're working really diligently. I could say we've had great support from our past Midwestern regional VPs, Brother LG Sims, who helped us get the alumni chapter chartered Sigma Epsilon Lambda here in Toronto back
Mm-hmm.
in 2013. Brother Willis Lonzer, who is our immediate past regional vice president, was just phenomenal. In fact, here in Toronto in April of 2019, we hosted the
Mm-hmm.
first regional convention ever to be held in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So, great leadership, great support there. And of course, Brother Stovall hasn't missed a beat. We're still carrying on that same thread. So uh, we generally, our leadership understands the need. And again, I'm just speaking about Canada. Of course, we've got the brothers in the UK,
Yeah.
Liberia, South Africa, Korea,
Yeah.
etc. All have their own nuances and their own needs and things like that. I think what we're working towards now more so is galvanizing that and really creating. We've talked about even creating an international region, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that I solidly support now because I think we've grown and developed to that point where we need to have that collective voice in that space, and so that the fraternity from a board level and a leadership level can focus on the international piece, just like we focus on the ongoing business in the U.S. So that kind of gives you an
No, that
overview of
was a wonderful, and
what
that was
my
definitely,
head is
and
at.
definitely, and I definitely now I just thought about that too. It's like, okay, voteless people, hopeless people, but in regards to political involvement across the world and getting, disproportionate or marginalized groups involved in politics
Yeah,
is good for everybody. So that
absolutely.
go to college, go to high school. I mean, obviously, encouraging same group of disproportionate groups of marginalized groups that don't go to school and don't go to college. I mean, I think that's transferable across the world. And you said something that I just never thought about was that, I'm just so focused on my experience as a black man in America, but you said anti-black racism, even in Canada. I'm just like, it never even, no offense to it, just never,
Right.
you're so focused on your bubble about, oh, I'm facing racism as a black man, but I don't think about like anti-racism and anti-blackness in other countries. And so I
Hmm.
think that, wow, like that is sometimes you gotta get outside your bubble. And that's why I'm really enjoying this conversation with you, is because, I think sometimes even as a black man in America, I don't think about the global effects of racism across the
Right.
world. I'm just so like focused on my experience in this system, United States system. But obviously, you get to see a little bit different from a different lens.
Yeah, Fred. I mean, I think it's one of the things of the American experience, particularly, and again, because I've been so much between the two countries, understanding the mindset, the education systems, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You make a really good point, and I'll give you an example again, a frat example. This is kind of funny to me in a way, but very telling. So when I first came to the Midwestern Region convention in 2017 to propose that we host a convention in Toronto, the first question or kind of pushback I got was, well, Brother Wood, are we gonna have a passport to come there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's the issue? And then I realized, oh no, I'm talking. This is a room full of American guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the norm for everybody to just automatically have a passport like you have a driver's license. In
Mm-hmm.
Canada and many other countries around the world, I mean, people travel internationally all the time. It's like a thing, like that you just
Mm-hmm.
grow up being accustomed to doing. Um, but in the United States, it's not as much.
Yeah.
And it's just a mindset. It's a cultural thing, right? And so that was a hurdle we had to get over, and we did because we actually set a record registration number over 1,200 for our convention. So we certainly quelled that issue. But it was just the fact that we had to even think about that. And when I mentioned this to the brothers here in the chapter here, they were like, "What are you talking about? A passport?" But I mean, I've had a passport since I was like born, like
Yeah.
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 So
So
it's just a
yeah.
different mindset. So that just gives you like a little bit of an insight as to somehow some ways I think that is true that Americans are very American centric and have less
Yeah.
of a
Yes.
worldview on the average.
Yeah.
Um, whereas I think people in other countries tend to be more aware, generally speaking. Canada in particular, yes. I mean, uh, because we have a society that is made up of people from all over the world. Um, yeah, there's a cognizance that everything didn't just start at a certain point in North America.
Yeah.
That's not where your family came from. That's not where what your ancestry is, and that's not the be all end all. Yes, I can be very proudly Canadian.
Hmm.
This is my country. This is my home. You know, my loyalty, and all of that, sure. But it doesn't, but by expressing that doesn't mean that I have to distance myself from my heritage. So if
Hmm.
I'm, like in my case, I'm Scottish, for
Hmm.
example, I don't have to not talk about that or feel weird or, you know,
Hmm.
distance myself from it. And it's the same for people, people of color, or as we the term in Canada is visible minorities, like uh, in our chapter in SEL, right?
Hmm.
We have probably 14 different countries represented
Wow. Okay.
between some of the brothers came here as young guys or students or whatever themselves from overseas. Some are first generation, like their parents immigrated here.
Hmm.
But we have brothers from all over the Caribbean and also from the African continent. So
Hmm.
whether it be Ghana or Nigeria
Hmm.
or Zambia, I mean, it's amazing. But that's the beauty of it, and we celebrate that, and we have we talk and we share those things, and we learn about each other from that perspective. Yeah, we're all Canadians and we're all here and we're all doing our deal. Okay, that's cool, but like learning about somebody else's culture, learning about somebody else's experiences. One of the brothers from Kenya, he invited me one time, and some of his friends from Kenya were there at his house visiting, and cooked this meal that was a traditional meal, from home, and sharing that meal and explaining to me like they had specially um, got sent from their family overseas certain spices and certain things that they can't even get here in Canada, because they want to make it authentically and so forth and so on, and just explaining to me all how this is prepared and what it is, and all this kind of stuff. And I think when you engage with people in that fashion, it just shows you how much actually more in common we have than we actually are different. Because the ingredients of my grandmother's recipe might be different from the ingredients in your grandmother's recipe, but the connection is, your grandmother's recipe is special to you, and mine is special to me, and we can share that
Right.
and enjoy it, and get to know each other on more than just a superficial level as people. And so
Yeah.
I think that's more prevalent here in Canada than it would be in the States, for sure.
So I mean, I'm obviously taking another pivot, but even from that outsider point of view, we're saying a very, and I like that. I'm gonna use that new word. Was it American centric? Obviously it's just like inner. Is
Yeah.
that what is Canada's view, or just a lot of even your brother's view of all this like racial police brutality? Just like I was saying in my mind, like it's so ever present. If I sometimes I have to take a break from the news. I'm just all Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, all that stuff, right? Because that's in our American news. But how are people experiencing or witnessing is it like almost still like for black men, and when I say black men, like your frat brothers, is it still kind of like disconnected? Like that's kind of America's, mess going on?
No.
Or it's like, yo, I'm a black man, even as a black man in Canada, I feel this. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it like,
Yeah. No,
are some of your brothers, like really affected
yeah.
by it in Canada,
Mhm.
or it's like they almost can keep it away at a distance because it's in America?
No, it's definitely something that everybody's very cognizant, very aware, and very affected
Mm-hmm.
by. In part because I think as Canadians, we look around the world and we see,
Mm-hmm.
again, people, we see human beings. And that's something that we're very generally cognizant of. Now, again, I'm not trying to say by any stretch, because I know somebody's going to go, oh, Canada this and Canada that.
Mm-hmm.
We have our issues. I
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that. I'm very, very upfront about it. We absolutely do. I think the thing is that generally as Canadians, more so on the average than folks in the US, we look at wherever, the United States, whatever place in the world, and we look at it through a compassionate lens and say, hey, if human beings are suffering, they're going through some system of injustice, whatever, we have compassion for that. Now, I mean, I don't know how any human being could look at the George Floyd video and not just have your heart torn out, man. I mean, that's just my personal view. And
Mm-hmm.
looking at all of that, I don't know. It's heartbreaking,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also enraging. I mean, all that full range of emotions that people are feeling. When you see that, how can you not be moved? So I would say that some of these things that we're experiencing now, because of social media, because of the
Mm-hmm.
rapid transfer of imagery around the world, of course, it's hitting home in a way that is so instantaneous, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not entirely unfiltered, but less filtered. So absolutely, it has an impact when we see these images. I think for the brothers, I don't want to speak for other people per se, but I
Mm-hmm.
think in the discussions that we have, yeah, of course, you see somebody, and don't get it wrong. I mean, like we travel across this border, well,
Mm-hmm.
other than
Yeah.
coronavirus, but like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a very common, regular thing. People go on vacation, they do business, they do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So to think that, oh, hey, I might go down to the States
Mm-hmm.
on vacation, and this could happen to me.
Okay.
So yeah, that's definitely a thing that's on people's mind. But then in addition to that, as I said, there is racism in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, I would say, is this: Canada's history is different than the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at that. The development of what, um, I guess, the black community or the African diaspora in Canada
Mm-hmm.
has been different than the United States. Although, and many Americans may not know this, a lot of Canadians might not even, but there has been slavery. Yes, there was in Canada. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there has been discrimination and that kind of thing. Um, you know, you go back to, we have our own, I guess, sort of Rosa Parks figure, Viola Desmond, from
Mm-hmm.
Nova Scotia. She's now on our $10 bill.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole history behind her story, and not given way to sitting in a segregated section of a movie theater in Nova Scotia,
Mm-hmm.
and the court case and everything that came about from that, and increasing awareness and understanding of discrimination here in this country. And that actually took place even before Rosa Parks,
Mm-hmm.
and the bus boycott. But so don't think for a moment that Canada is exempt, or hasn't seen these issues and doesn't continue to see it. I think um, it's just the circumstances and the dynamics have been different. And I think also from my perspective, between the two countries, there's one thing that's very different about Canada versus the US. And that is, in the United States, you have sort of this interchangeable terminology where When you talk about the African American community, that's interchangeable with the Black community. Typically, it's kind of an understood thing, which means that this is a community of people who have a collective experience and a collective culture, and that has resulted from the dynamic of how slavery was exacted in the U.S. and in the colonies before the United States, and because of that, then the history and the ancestry and all of that of people who were enslaved not being available to them and being totally robbed of that prior to being enslaved, so that they are now they don't have that cultural identity to look back to. And as I said, for myself, that's something that's really important to me. Like I still have much of my family overseas, like in Scotland, for example, today. Not being able to have that, not having any way to find it out, like that is a thing that brings together the Black community in the United States in a specific kind of way. That is not necessarily the same experience in Canada. And the reason for that is because many of the people that have immigrated to Canada that are of the African diaspora have come here often more recently from the Caribbean, from Africa, different countries in the continent. And so culturally, they don't have that same connection. So, you depending on where people are from, they may not even necessarily get along, if they're from, say, and I'll just give an example, not to disparage anybody, but if you know the history of Eritrea and Ethiopia, for example, you might have two people from those two countries that don't necessarily, they don't identify as being connected, as being having the same background, right? Whereas in North America, it's based on your skin color. It's based on your appearance, right? And it's assumed, and I find this interesting too. A lot of times with Americans, it's assumed if you have a certain complexion that your experience is the same as theirs.
Yeah.
I've had friends. There was a girl that I worked with. She's Canadian. She's from Toronto. Grew up here. Her parents are Jamaican. They immigrated from Jamaica, and she's born and raised here in Toronto. She was working for an American company overseas in Germany. And she's telling me that they were going to do like an American Thanksgiving celebration or whatever. Okay. So they were like, okay, well, let's have, everybody do a potluck and bring different food. And they said, to her, well, what are you going to bring? I mean, are you going to do greens? Or are you going to do chicken? And she's like, well, I'm sorry. I don't know any of that stuff. I know of it, but I don't know how to make it. And she said that one woman got actually kind of upset with her and took it as an offense. Like, what do you mean? You're Black. You don't know how to make greens? Well, come on. Like, you think you're this or that? And she's like, no, I'm not American. I grew up in Canada and my parents are from Jamaica. I've never made that before. Never, and it's really a simple thing in a sense, but it's also very complex, and it's also, it can be very confrontational, hurtful, because I think that people, when you make assumptions, this is like anything. You make an assumption about a person based on their appearance. Man, that is a very dangerous road to go down.
Yeah,
and it takes us into some places that, and sometimes it's not even intentional, but we have to be really, really careful about it. But I think because of the dynamics in the States, it's something that often Americans have a tendency to do.
Now you have this dual identity as an American and Canadian. Do you find yourself having to like defend America, like to Canadians, like, yo, like where I grew up, America ain't, they're like, America is like, it's not that trash, like it's okay place, there's some good parts, or, do you find yourself defending America, or like not really, people are not really, like in Canada, do people shade America? Because I will give you one instance.
That's a good question.
I'm a pretty international person myself. I'm a military brat. I had a nanny growing up. She's in England. And so when I went over to England to go visit my UK fam, I call them, they're like, yo, what's going on in America? Like, I was like, your president, what's he doing? All kinds of stuff like that. And I don't know, I felt like I had to defend it. Like, I was like, not everyone's like that, or not everyone thinks like that, or the news. Like, I felt like I had to be like, no, like it was weird. It was just like a weird outside, that mindset that maybe the world doesn't look at America in such a positive light. And I found myself having to defend America, which was so funny.
Boy, that, I tell you, Frat, that is the question, isn't it? For me personally, no, I don't feel that I have to defend anything. I mean, I believe that I'm entitled to have my own views and opinions and thoughts and express them, as long as I'm not doing harm to anybody else and all of that. So, and I'll be honest, at this stage of life, I'm fairly opinionated. I can be real with myself about that. But a lot of it, like all of us, it comes from our experiences, right? Mm-hmm. More often than not, though, when I get in these kinds of discussions with Canadians who are asking me about the experience as an American, and it's funny, you said I have this dual identity. I feel like it's like Clark Kent, Superman kind of.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I don't really look at it as that. I guess for me, it's kind of weird, but because of how I grew up and because of my, just how I see the world, I kind of see myself more so as a Canadian that was just happened to be born in the States.
Okay.
That's really kind of how I see myself. And that's not, again, that's not to disparage one side or the other or anything like that. It really has more so to do with my family upbringing and my education and sort of how I was shaped in that way, but and how I see the world. But I think that when I'm asked about the States by Canadians, it's usually more of like perplexed. Like no, seriously,
and that's what I'm saying too. They look at me like it's
I told you about,
that's the word. That's
I told you about the passport thing. It's like, they don't, what do you mean they don't have a passport? Like, what, why would they, why would that be an issue? Yeah. And that's a small one, but I'll tell you a really good one that we get into heavy discussion about, and I'm highly opinionated on, is healthcare.
Yeah.
When President Obama was in office and he's trying to put through, the Affordable Care Act, which, everybody labeled Obamacare. Mm-hmm. The one thing, and imagine, just try to step back for a second objectively and look at this from outside of the United States.
Yeah.
You've got people who literally are being interviewed and saying, I don't want Obamacare. I don't want it. Oh, but I want that Affordable Care Act. Yeah. Canadians, and I think probably a lot of other people around the world are going, excuse me, what? Yeah. So that's just kind of, off the top, and it's kind of makes you laugh, but like really you got to ask yourself, but let's get more serious. Okay. The issue with the healthcare thing, and you often hear Americans say this, those who are opposed to a universal healthcare type of program, they will say, I don't want the government in my healthcare. Okay, so then you're more comfortable with a for-profit corporation dictating to you how to manage your body, your health, than you are the government you elect. Mm-hmm. There's something fundamentally disturbing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really look at that, you go, wow, these people trust a system that they have no control over whatsoever to take care of their most valuable asset, their own family, their own health, their own existence, than the people they put in position through
Mm-hmm.
the political system. That, I think that's really telling.
Yeah,
Um,
and you can see that from a different point of view, from a Canada's point of view.
oh yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, when even when we have folks up here talk about, oh yeah, well, my platform is maybe to let's move towards a more U.S. style healthcare system. Yeah, it's very few Canadians that I've come across that really think that that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, and having lived in both countries and experienced both systems, I'll just tell you, it's one of the things in Canada. Is it perfect? No, come
No.
on.
Yeah.
There's no perfect anything in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get off of that nonsense. Okay, it irritates me, as you can tell, to when people want to get way off into this idealism thing. I'm not talking about this utopian idealism. I'm talking about the actual
Mm-hmm.
current existing system. Not perfect, but if you're going to look at the two, oh man,
There you go. Yeah.
it's incredible. Couple of quick examples. Your kid, you got kids. You were telling me you have children. They get a cold, they get a fever, something, a rash, something, whatever, like kids do. What's your first consideration? You want them cared for. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that simple. You want to get them to a doctor or the hospital or wherever so that this can be treated and they can be healthy. And that's every parent's concern. Why in the world would I not want you to have your children's health cared for? Well, guess what? You don't have the money for it. Too bad. You're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of mindset, what kind of mentality, what kind of humanity is that? And I think that that's what, when Canadians and people in other countries that have a more universal or, oh my gosh, I'm going to say the S word, socialized
Mm-hmm.
medicine, program. That's what people go this when they look at the United States and they go, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Why would you not want your neighbors, your fellow citizens to have a basic
Mm-hmm.
standard
Mm-hmm.
level of healthcare
Yeah.
so that they can take care of their own children? And then and then of course our elderly, which we know that in a capitalist system the elderly are disposable because the elderly are not consumers. You get to a certain point and say you're on a fixed income and this and that, you're not buying the new car every year, you're not going to be upgrading your house, you're not going to be consuming lots of
Mm-hmm.
whatever consumer goods. So now you become disposable in this capitalist system. And so the healthcare system, yeah, absolutely, it's not designed to maintain. And what's really bizarre about it, in my view, is as we look at long-term care and the elderly and these sorts of things, um, well, guess what? We're living longer. That's great. That's really
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Except one thing. Whereas, X number of years ago, let's say, a person retires at 65 and you're dead by 70. So your retirement and all this kind of stuff has to last you for, okay, 5 years, let's say 3 to 5 years. Today, people are living their 80s, 90s. I
Hundreds.
mean, how
Yeah.
many more centenarians do we have these days? So now all of a sudden, the burden on the system is such that we got to care for people. It could be 25, 30, 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different ball game. So we've got to, I think realistically, around the world, we
Mm-hmm.
have to look at what does that look like from a healthcare
Yeah.
standpoint, because there's more and more elderly people, and I mean, let's just again be real. As you get older, the propensity for health issues increases.
Yeah.
You got to do something.
But then on the flip side, as you just said, you're not working no more. So like, how you gonna afford it?
Right.
So like, you're right. Like, we're living longer
Right.
with the pot of money that you got to hold on and stretch out. Normally, you could have stretched it out for 5 years, but now you got to stretch out that pot of money retirement wise for
Sure.
20 to 30 years.
And I
So
mean, I got off a little bit,
now, but what
and added that piece in, but I'm just saying,
I get
like
what you're saying.
it's all part and parcel of this thing. And so from the healthcare standpoint, obviously, and we hear it all the time, this elderly person, they lost their home, or
Mhm.
they had to choose between their medication and eating. Well,
Yeah,
that ain't good. I mean, like, come on, let's how can any conscionable person, responsible adult, think that that is acceptable?
and that is the
It's
perplexed feeling that you're saying. Keyword we're going back to is
yeah.
perplexing, and it's perplexing because you're getting it from an outsider's point of view. Like I look at, you're able to look at the micro of a system and say,
Mhm.
how's that system working, America? from
Yeah,
from the Canadian's perspective. And that's
right.
similar. And I'm glad you said that word, because that was the same kind of feeling that I got when I speak to people internationally. Is just straight perplexed. Like they're like literally like, what is going on? But in my own bubble, I could see it. You could see it. But I was thinking about that just in general, like talking to people, having conversations, but just how the news looks, like watching BBC from another
Hmm.
country. It's like, wow, that's how they record us, or that's how they're, showing our news stories.
Right.
It is, I would always encourage everyone to travel outside the United States. Because as you
Absolutely.
said, it's not as
100%.
normalized. It's not as normalized as it is in other countries. But I always would encourage any American, if they had the ability, money, if they were a student, go with the study abroad, because it is
Hmm.
so it is
Yeah.
essential for you to see the world, one, for yourself, see how other countries and people live all over the world. But it's also just so interesting to see your community and see outside in that fishbowl mindset. Like get out of you should always get outside of your own communities at some point in your life and look at
Sure.
it from an objective point of view. And it makes you like come back to it. I'm like, I just think about that sometimes. Like, I always think like, you know, not just how do I think about myself, but how do other people think about me, but like in a global sense. Like I
Right.
always think about America, but how does the world think about, like, how does the world think about it? And
Hmm.
I love these conversations with people from all over the world. I love meeting people from Africa and Ghana, and talking about how they come to America and why they viewed America a certain way. But it's
Hmm.
just so interesting, and I find that so amazing. So that was I'm gonna use that. I feel I'm gonna say the word perplexed about 20 times this week, because that definitely is what I was thinking. Well,
Yeah, it's for sure, man. It's mind-boggling sometimes, and like I say, it's a lot of work to do. It's a lot of good things that I think people are becoming more aware of now, socially and politically. I hope that it will create some movement in the
mhm,
right direction. Um, but yeah, I think it's just we're really realizing, and if there's ever been a time in our modern history that the
mhm,
world should understand that we really are living together collectively on this planet. This
mhm.
this this COVID pandemic thing has illustrated that.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter your ethnicity or any of these things, gender, all this stuff. Like, this is serious. So if this is something this virus can show us, that we are interconnected as human beings, then we need to wake up and realize that all these other things are also
Hmm.
points where we are interconnected.
Hmm. Yeah, conflict, war, all those
All of
things.
it. Yeah.
Poverty,
Healthcare,
health,
education,
food insecurity, all this stuff is
all of
interconnected.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Water supplies, all of
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
You name it.
Okay. So I surprised you because I didn't tell you, but I got a segment of the show called Shot for Shot. Uh,
Okay.
it's called Shot for Shot because I get to ask you any random question, not even related to this, and you get to ask me any random question. Do you want to go first, or I'll go
Wow.
first?
You go first, man.
Okay, so you're in Canada. Shout out to the Toronto Raptors. Can you just take us through? Have you always been? Are you a bandwagon Toronto fan, or this was all love for all Canada? And just take us through. Was that really cool for the city?
Man, I'll be totally blunt and honest. I did jump on the bandwagon
Okay.
because years back my team was the Sonics. They went away, and I just said, I'll watch college basketball. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But no, the Raptors. Let me tell you, man, why I got on the bandwagon of the Raptors. It was, I mean, sure, the excitement in the city, da da da. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. But I mean, the Raptors been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Why I got on board with the Raptors, what I saw was a team that harken back to the old days, but the older days of, say, some of the teams in the 80s, that I as a kid watched, like the Celtics and the Lakers, as those that were teams.
Mm,
And
mhm,
yeah, sure, Kawhi Leonard and whatnot, phenomenal players and stuff. But what I really saw in that team that inspired me and I loved was that Raptors team was a team. And any given night, this guy could not be feeling well. That guy could maybe have a
mhm,
ding or an injury or whatever. Another guy steps in
mhm,
and takes his place and does the job. And they just kept doing that. Like it was
mhm,
just like this thing, and you could see that they were just cohesively working together as a unit and stepping up. Guys were just focused on the job at hand. And a lot of times, I mean, pro sports being what it is,
mhm,
there's a lot of individualism and a lot of
mhm.
I'm the star guy and I got to get the biggest contract kind of attitude and all that. I didn't really see that with this team, and that really I thought was really cool. Um, and then down the stretch, man,
Mhm,
every time, first round of playoffs. Well, yeah, Raptors are good, but okay, well they got by, who was it? It was the Sixers, right? Yeah,
mhm,
was that the one with the Kawhi bounce? Yeah.
mhm.
Okay, which was just that was crazy. But it's sometimes in life that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
Like the ball bounces your way. So cool.
Mhm,
Like that was great. Oh no, Milwaukee's gonna, wipe the floor with them.
mhm,
You know. Well, it didn't quite work out that way, did it? You know.
mhm.
Even Golden State, it's like, and yeah, I know they had an injury and this and that, but guess what? You know what I was always told playing sports, growing up and in college and everything was this: you play with the team that you brought,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
Mhm,
injuries happen. It's athletics. No excuses. We know as alpha men, we know about excuses.
yeah.
Like at the end of the day, there's a game to play. You got to show up and you got to win
Mhm,
it or not, right? So
yep.
all the well, what if this? What? No, this is what happened. This is how it went down. And to see that, I thought was really exceptional. Those guys never, their focus, their determination was on point all the way through. So winning that championship, man, let me tell you something. The night
It
I
looked
was
fun.
out with some friends, the night that they won, and I mean, the whole city was just
Mhm,
nuts. But the coolest thing about it, Frat, was this: it just shows you that when people choose to be good to each other, the world can be a different place. Everybody in this city, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what color you are, this, that. Uh, Everybody was a Toronto Raptors fan.
mhm.
Everybody on the street. We went down to Nathan Phillips Square. Everybody's just out there hollering and cheering, and you know, and you just saw like this goodness, man. And it was the same day when they did the same thing when they did the parade. It was a happy, electric feeling, and it just shows you, yeah, when people choose to be good to each other,
Yeah.
the world could be so much
It looked
better.
like a lot of fun. It definitely looked like a lot of fun. All right, go ahead. Your question for me.
Oh man, let me think. So, oh, I got one for you. What for you is the greatest thing about being a father?
Oh, dang, that was a good one. All right, so I got a little hashtag called prayers for Maggie. That's my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's wrong. She's just surrounded by us boys, and like, there's nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with my wife. She's perfectly healthy. But just I say hashtag prayers for Maggie because she is surrounded by just craziness. And I think the best thing about being a parent, particularly a father, is that I'm blessed to have two mini clones. And when I say mini clones, is that I see myself and my boys, but in two different ways, two different personality things. Like, not exactly. It's like someone split me in half and gave me some, gave some characteristics and personality to my 5-year-old Bennett and some to Miles. But it's like I visibly see as they get older and I have more dialogue with them and I teach them is that I will have little mini me's to share and give advice and love. But then as I get older, having these conversations, like, just giving them advice and showing them how to be a man. And I don't know, just, it'll transform from, a protector, guider to more of a mentor to, like, I don't know, maybe someday they'll be taking care of me, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I just love to see, I'm just excited to see that transform, that relationship transform, and just be a part of someone else's journey. Like I will always, no matter what, I got them tattooed on my leg. And then I was like, we could be estranged. They can move away 10 years, whatever. But they're 100% will always be my sons. Like, there's no denying they'll always be connected to me. And the fact that I have two little human beings that will always be connected to me it's crazy. It's like awesome. Like I've always, but obviously I'm not gonna disappear. I'm gonna bother them. They can't get rid of me. I'm gonna be calling them, when they're in college, I'll be texting them. I might show up, trying to party with them, being too old and washed. But it's just it's that I have two little human beings that no matter what, they will always be my sons, no matter what, and they'll always be connected to me. They'll always be, someone. I say they'll always have the best qualities of me. I always say that, hopefully they always have the best qualities of me and not the worst. I think they're also, for me to have sons, they're like a blank slate. Like sometimes I feel like the mistakes I made, I can just make sure that they don't make those same ones. Or, it's almost like they're a prototype. Like sometimes I could give my sons advice that I wish I could have gave myself. So it's awesome. Now, if I had, two girls, I'd probably say the same thing, a little bit different, but I won. I told my wife I won. I got two boys. I won. We're done. No more kids. I got two
That's
boys.
all right, man. That's
all
right.
And maybe, the other day, my 5-year-old was like, hey, Dad, I want to go to college. I want to go to George Mason just like you and become an alpha. He said that. I said, okay, well,
That's dope. Yeah.
If he doesn't, I don't care. But just the hope that he might be the same as me, that'd be pretty cool. Like I hold on to that. I was like, maybe he'll be something else. But the fact that he's like, he looks up and says he wants to do the same things as me, like that's like the dopest feeling ever. That a little person wants to grow up and be like you. So like that's a great feeling. So maybe 2030 something, 37. I don't know what he'll be. He'll crawl. Who knows?
Right on.
And that'd be cool. But that's it.
Definitely. That's awesome.
Well, this has been a great show. I know it's all over the map, but I definitely learned. I definitely loved it. Definitely gonna have you on again, and we're gonna link up on your show.
Absolutely.
But, with that being said, the stage is set. The platform is yours. Shout outs and plugs. Shout out whoever you want to shout out, show love to, frat, family, anyone, show them love. And then plugs, particularly things that you want the listeners to follow up with you, social media, things that you're working on, at which point I'll also put in the show notes so they can definitely follow up with you. So keep my mouth shut. Shout outs and plugs. All you.
All good, bro. Well, thank you so much. Well, first shout out, man, to you, Frat, for just having me on and having the dialogue. And I think it's really important, as I said before, the beauty of this is that even in different places, different cities, different countries, as brothers, we come together and we share our life experiences, we share our thoughts, and we dialogue about the important issues of the day. And that resounds right back to the origination, the founding of our fraternity. And so to me, it's an honor to be able to engage with brothers like yourself in whatever platform, and making use of obviously this type of thing is so smart and so impactful. So that's the first thing. Obviously to the frat, it's been a 30-year journey, and I certainly have enjoyed it and look forward to many more. To the brothers in Sigma Epsilon Lambda here in Toronto, we just look forward to great things and a great future here in Canada, and really providing service and advocacy here to the communities in locally in Toronto and across Canada as we grow and develop. To my kids, shout out, love you guys always. And who else? What else? Alpha Psi chapter, the chilliest chapter in the world. We as they say, college days swiftly pass, but that will always be in my heart. Where I pledge. So that's awesome, and good brothers and good friends that I have had for 30 years coming from that experience. Amazing time. I think that'll do it. As far as plugs, you can find out more about me if people are interested to learn more about the play. The play is called The Other Brother: The Black Fraternal Experience in America as Seen Through Blue Eyes. And the website is IamTheOtherBrother.com. You can follow me on Facebook as well as on Instagram at I Am The Other Brother. And I mean,
and your show,
check it out. Oh, and I'm wow, yeah, the main thing. Like, I tell you, I wear so many hats, brother. Wow, man, I need like an assistant or something. But yeah, so on Monday nights, started this show here during the pandemic, and we're going to continue it on. It's called The Manhood: Life Conversations with Real Brothers. It is on Facebook Live Mondays from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, we save all the shows so you can go back and look at past episodes. You can watch it live, ask questions, interact with the show itself. But the Facebook page is the Alpha House 06, the Alpha House 06 on Facebook. It's every Monday, 7 to 8 Eastern.
Yes, and that's how we got connected. And it's a great show. You had some people that I know. Shout out to brother Gregory Parks. That's good peoples. I know him. Shout out to Luke Keys. I know that the young bro. And you just had some really great guests. So it's a great show. I just love it. And then I just met. I connected with him after the show, but the show with the gentleman with all the cars. Oh man, that was crazy.
Brother Martin Negrin. Yeah, yes, man. I mean, that guy.
I don't know. That was was
phenomenal.
I've never seen. He had cars that were like, he collected cars like they were Matchbox cars. Like, that's crazy. I've never seen someone in so many dope cars. So his show, please check it out. So please follow up with this great brother. He's doing great things, sharing love on the platform, showing love to all the brothers and fraternity, and just. Like I said, the Brotherhood is very international, and also you could just organically meet a brother in another country and just know that we have a shared connection, a shared passion for the world and all those things. And that's crazy to me. So please check out all these things. They'll all be in the show notes, the otherbrother.com, and then the Alpha House 06. Please check it out. So if you love the show, please share and like it, and share and write a description with your friends, or you can leave a voicemail for the podcast, which is 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Check out the podcast, share this episode with your friends. We're having a great time. Thank you, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, spreading positivity of movement. Thanks for listening.